So I'm going to wait until people get on. I've sent invites, and I'm going to ask people to share the live. Anyway, if you missed the beginning of this live, you can go onto YouTube, and we can go from there. Let me see. So today we're going to be talking about abundant mindset, something we all struggle for. Believe me, there are people who hyper focus on it, and it's their drive, it's their mojo. They just want more and more money, right? An abundant mindset to me is a little different. To me, abundance is love, health, and wealth. Wealth being the last, because wealth without, if you're in a wheelchair, is not abundance, right? So health is probably the most important thing you want to master. And love for yourself, so that you can accept love from others. Because most people actually don't even know how to accept love from others, because they actually have such a hard time loving themselves. So this is a challenge for many people. And the abundant mindset of the material world, well, I mean, the cage is fear. It's fear, and the fear factor that has annihilated many of us to have the abundance of wealth, bank accounts, because we're afraid to make mistakes, because we're afraid to still be in our cage. The concept of the cage is a big thing. We see it in wild animals. We'll see an animal that's been caught because it was hurt or forever or whatever happened, and its bone is set in a cast, right? And then eventually it heals. How many times have you seen an animal where they open the cage and the animal actually doesn't want to run out of the cage? It wants to stay. It's afraid of the unknown. And I remember one day when I was meeting my twin the first time, sitting in the airport, it was around 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, having those exact feelings run through my body, wanting to run back to what I knew, rather to move into the unknown. And basically, I had to talk myself off the ledge and say, get on the fucking plane. So money. Every aspect of what you're afraid of is going to impact your money. It doesn't matter what you're afraid of. It's going to impact your money, because you're running through the vibrational frequency of fear. Fear of fucking up. Very few people are afraid of success, but trust me, there are a lot of them out there. Most of us, this is my number, okay? It's not an actual stat, but stats are like questionable anyway, because they can be manipulated. But my number that just popped in my head was 80% of us are afraid of fucking up, making mistakes. This concept of worthiness and money, you have to ask yourself, it goes deeper than just worthiness and money. Just like overeating or over drinking is deeper than just wanting to soften the edges. So you have to look at yourself and go, what exactly is it that makes me unworthy? Is it really unworthiness that makes you push back opportunities? Maybe that is your story. That is what is keeping you from accessing wealth. Some of us aren't meant, and I'm going to be straight up, some of us aren't meant to be billionaires. Some of us had a soul contract with ourselves to be in the trenches, to be the soldiers, the foot soldiers, in the fuckery of 3D, in the infrastructure that abuses and controls the masses, to become the enlightened ones, to teach other people what this monkey carnival was all about. You know what I'm saying? And that's the problem, is that we forgot why we had to live these incarnations in that level of lack, if you will. We had to understand the control factors. We had to understand the fear factor used on the collective, to then wake up and to report back to the collective saying, oh, this is how we've been played. So the fear factor of money, right? And some people will say, it's my lack, it's my survival. Yes, well, that's the very thing, is survival. is the fear. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, when you get very, very expansive in your belief system about incarnations and these particular, lives that we've lived, you'll realize that, honestly, you can overcome anything. And we have examples of it. And I've brought it up again, many times, but it's been a while. So I'm going to bring up Hilary Swank. Hilary Swank was in her car homeless with her mother. And within a few years, she was winning an Oscar. The African man in the Gladiator movie was in the Paris metros homeless for 7 years. Until he was in that world famous movie in 2000, Gladiator. And we have success stories upon success stories of people who were homeless who came out because they had nothing more to lose. They'd lost everything. So this concept of putting yourself in a state of perpetual fear instead of surrender. It's funny because the minute you surrender to the most fearsome thing, I noticed that the tsunami of emotions that come at you with fear, right? You're afraid of being homeless. You're afraid of losing your job. You're afraid of not making the mortgage or the rent. You're afraid. The minute you surrender to that and go, I surrender. It literally transforms into, like it explodes into nothing. In other words, that monster you thought was real disappears into the ethers. It just goes. There's nothing there anymore. And suddenly magic comes. You get a check out of nowhere from, say, a medical insurance company that said you overpaid us or whatever, and here's a $1,500 check or here's $900, and you're like, what the are you kidding me? I swear to God, this is. If I hadn't experienced this multiple times, in my life, from the age of 40 when I made a decision to actually really go for it, because just like you, I'd been raised to be, in my case, a good girl, French raised, Swiss raised, where you do what you're told. You're a good girl. You do your best. You follow the rules. The minute I said, fuck this, I'm going to do what the fuck I want. And my son actually had a lot to do with this, because suddenly now having children should actually bolster your confidence, because the minute you have children, you realize you want better for them. You should. And you're fierce about it. You become a lioness on that if you're a woman, a lion if you're a man. You want better for them. You'll do whatever the fuck it takes. And the machine of the system will try to break you. Many times what happens in being somatically exhausted, you, Rachel, were talking about your solar plexus. And the solar plexus is the seat of power, but really you should be working on your root chakra, to be honest. Because from the root chakra comes all the healing that you need. It's literally going up through the chakras. And it's piercing through the crown chakra into the infinite of power. And to constantly just go for a chakra and go, this is it. Yes, of course this is it. But the solar plexus is a fun, powerful amulet in your tool chest. But it won't be fun if your fucking root chakra is fucked, and fear is root chakra, period. Period. And that's where you have to go and just release. The somatic energies in Sanskrit, it's called samskaras, impressions, sticky substances that we carry from one incarnation to another, right? Or something that you would do using Reginald Ray's somatic guided meditations. For example, he's the best. If I were going to say to anyone, somatic, and I'm a huge believer in somatic healing, I believe in combo. If you are really fucked up somatically and you know it, go find yourself a combo practitioner. It is legal. Go find one. Go find one that will make sure that you're healthy physically. Go find one that will want your medical history. Don't find one that's a, Las Vegas shaman. Okay? I'm not joking. They're out there. Because those people are dangerous. But the right shaman, which I used for my son when his father died, and I've talked about that before, so I'm not going to go back into it unless you want me to. Ask me in the comments. was very important because pain is traps on a cellular level. Sexual trauma, trauma of someone dying, trauma of abandonment, dark night of the soul, so on and so forth. Fuck, being a starseed is traumatic in these human bodies. Okay, now, in terms of money, because let's talk a nitty gritty. You can have a Lakshmi altar all fucking day long. You can actually say, money follows me everywhere. But if you actually don't believe it, if your monkey mind is going, yeah, you're a fucking loser. You've never had anything. How are you going to breach this? There is a class. Trust me, I struggle with that as well. I'm highly aware. But it's funny because I look back as to and I'm going to use my father as an example. He had an 8th grade education, born in 1923 during the Depression, and was actually the most brilliant man to this day, besides my twin, I've ever met. To this day. 2 men, that was it. And he didn't give a fuck about anything. He did things that were really sketchy shit. But he lived an amazingly enormous, he was bigger than life because he was unafraid of fucking up, of going to jail. And when I mean jail, I mean like an African jail, knowing he'd be out. And why was he doing it? For the greater good. If you're going to do shit that's sketchy, make sure you fucking do it for the greater good. In this case, it was to bring democracy to a particular African country, in this case, for him. For example. And because he knew he had the moral high ground, I'm not joking, man. When you follow certain things by society, all we have to do is look at the Yahtzees in Germany. And that's all I have to say. They were all following the fucking law. Okay? So now let's go back to money. Now that you understand that, hopefully you understand what I'm talking about freedom, fearlessness, moral high ground, the greater good, money. Well, guess what? He always had a lot of money. And when we lost a lot of money, right, or spent or went through it, he made it again. So we'd have pit stops of lack for a minute. I'm not joking. And then suddenly we had butlers and maids. Now, if you understood where his background was to that kind of lifestyle, you'd go, what the fuck? It was fearlessness. It was walking into places that were not allowed to people with that kind of background. It was being charismatic. Solar plexus, Rachel. That's where charisma comes from. Magnetism and charisma, where people don't even know why they're attracted to. But in terms of fear, yeah, that's hell in the root chakra, okay? And so you have to work on all your chakras and then, of course, spend more time on a particular chakra that needs more attention, of course. But my point to you is, if your monkey mind is saying, I've never been rich, or I've never had this, or I've never had that, while you're doing your affirmations of Om Namah Shivaya, or Om Shrim Rim Klim Lakshmi Swaha, or I always have money, money follows me everywhere, but in the background, worry, there's that worrying internal dialogue, aka the monkey mind, that's saying, yeah, you ain't shit. You've never been shit. You don't deserve shit. Remember when you ran over that kitten because you weren't looking? Remember when, in other words, guilt, shame, lack of self-worth, whatever, however. And that is what you have to handle, because the universe is a holographic universe. What you feel is more important than what you see. What you see isn't as important as what you feel. What you say is not as important as what you feel. So you can have altars all over the fucking house. You can have altars up your ass. It's what you feel. Now, what is the purpose of altars? Which I've been remiss. It's like fucking having 100 projects and not finishing one. But altars remind you that you are a spiritual soul above all. It reminds you that you're a multi-dimensional light being. It reminds you of who you really are. That's why you wear a mala around your wrist or around your neck. It reminds you of who you fucking are. When the shit is hitting the fan, you look down at your mala around your wrist. When I was working in 2003, 2004, when I was working my last fucking job, when I said this is my last fucking job, I was wearing malas. It took 20 years because I was involved with other outside environments that were outside of my control. But when I said no one will ever control my shit again, in other words, I don't give a fuck. If you're not walking with me, get the fuck out of my way type of attitude. Nicely, of course, nicer than what I'm saying. But really putting a limit, it's called boundaries. I want to win. Do you want to win? I'm not sure. Well, get the fuck out of my way. It's that simple. Don't let people take you by the ankle and drag you down into the ocean of nowhere. Don't ever let, I don't care who it is, I don't care if it's a twin, high-level soulmate, your father, your mother, don't let anyone fuck you up so bad in your head you can't even think. The generosity of being with someone who's on their deathbed is an important pact. And if you're attracted to doing that kind of work, to become a death doula for a minute, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, fucking do it. Because you're drawn to that because there's a finality, closure, healing, purging. It's for the greater good of both the person leaving and you staying behind. And yeah, it will fuck you up. That's what I'm saying. When your money dries up, your mind is up your wazuzu. And that's what's happening. I chose this beautiful, gorgeous black goddess coming out of the ocean of consciousness. Almost like a Lilith coming out of the waters. Purposely. Because she is finding herself. She is still knee-deep in her intuitivity. You know what I mean? She's still intuitive. She's lush. She's ready to go into the unknown. And to trust what she feels. And when she feels the negative monkey mind loops and clients, I still laugh at this shit because I'm like, what the fuck? When people, well, how many times? I don't know until your fucking mind stops talking. Well, I mean, hours? Yeah, that's right, hours. As you well know, many of you who follow me know, when I was driving from California to New York, I chanted 12 hours, 13 hours in the car. I was chanting at least 6 hours, if not more. I'm going to say minimum, because what the fuck else was I going to do? Let my monkey mind roll and spin all kinds of things that could go wrong? So money, and this is what I say about grief, money and the way the structure, the infrastructure fucks us up to keep our mind straight. Little Billy got expelled from class because of X, Y, and Z. Grandma's dying of cancer and she's deciding she's going to go into chemotherapy, or she's not. Billy just went into an accident in a car with a DUI. You know, the outside world is prime to fuck you and derail you off your game. See, that's why. So when you say things like, I feel unworthy, okay? Well, before you start, doing anything, okay, why do I feel unworthy? Why do I feel unworthy? What is it about me that feels like I should lose as opposed to winning? And I've talked about how my husband, the father of my son, who actually one day told me, I'm afraid to win. That was like, mic drop. What? And at that point, the a tower moment was I went left and he went right. I was like, and he couldn't get out of it. So there are people, God bless his soul, God bless his beautiful, beautiful heart. He was too good for this planet. It got to that point where he was too good, too soft in his heart, not as a man. He was a hell of a man, but too good. And the world, the environment, the outside environment had fucked him up. Bruce Lipton, I did a live, which I'm going to upload today, on this concept that children had low frequency and all this shit and they're suggestible and all this crap. They're fucking open fields of consciousness. And when pedos come at those kids, which they know purposely, David Icke talks about it in detail if you want to know exactly why it's done and who benefits from that kind of fuckery. It can destroy an entire life, I don't have to tell you, where they can't win. They don't have the wherewithal to win. There's something in them that broke and it will never be fixed. And some of us are bruised and banged up and chipped up. But there's something in us that is a flame that is undying in this particular timeline in this incarnation where we find the strength to reroute our thought patterns. It's all about what you think. So the world outside of you, what you see, you close your eyes and you go within yourself and you see the world you want to live in. Not the world that surrounds you. Not the broken chair, the fucking car that's 50 years old, the fucked up job that you fucking hate, the situation that makes you feel like you have absolutely no autonomy over 9 hours out of your day, Monday through Friday, shit like that, right? And you go within your inner landscape and you do it on the daily. If your meditation is all about just manifesting the world you want to see rather than the world you're in right now, eventually the world will collapse, 3D world, and you will be catapulted, maybe it'll take 3 years, it could, into the reality you were manifesting all along. And some of us, and this is something you got to kind of almost embrace, okay? Some of us had to live in the trenches. I'm repeating myself because it's important to understand what it's like to be in survival mode. Donald Trump, Kamala will never know what it was like. Oprah Winfrey will never know what it was like, what it's like. It's oh, I had a hard life. Yeah, but at 19 you were a fucking anchor woman because of opportunities given to you. At 19, you've got a microphone. How many fucking 19-year-olds today have a fucking microphone? And by the time you were, 30, you were making 6 figures. Hello? So she, for example, and this is an example I want to use, she never had to deal with, what do I pay? Do we eat this week? Well, are we going to be eating rice and beans for the whole fucking week? Because we had to pay the mortgage or the electricity or the cell phone bill, or you get where I'm going, or the Wi-Fi? They're out of touch. And that's why the kind of leaders we need are people who have been homeless or who have been close to it or who have made minimum wage those are the kind of leaders we need. Because from those experiences come massive empathy, non-judgment, where these motherfuckers in the nosebleed seats of fucking success, let's not forget, Trump started with $40 million. Now, can you spend $40 million in a day? Yes. It's called buying a stamp. There are old stamps that are worth $40 million. There's gold that you can buy. There's you could buy cryptocurrency and lose $40 million in a day. But to give him credit, he rolled it into some money, obviously. But he started with a fucking nest egg. This concept of bootstrap theory, when you go down the rabbit hole of how these people supposedly started on their fucking own, is a fucking joke for the most part. Are there people who did? Yes, there's a very famous, well, actually, she's not known, who started the body shop called Anita Roddick. And what's fucked is people don't even fucking know who she is. She's dead. She died a long time ago. But she started a heart-centered business. She started the movement of going into indigenous village in Africa and South America and giving women the opportunity to give her shea butter or give her wooden bowls and beaded things to sell in her body shop in London back in the late 70s. She started that, resourcing with consciousness. That was her movement. So my point to you is that as a woman in the late 60s and early 70s in London, which I lived in London during that time, the irony of ironies. And she, as a woman, went against the status quo of what women do and became an entrepreneur, a maverick, because she was fearless. You can't do this shit unless you're fearless. When you look back at faith, right? There's faith. Think of J.K. Rowling, right? When she wrote the Harry Potter, where she was on welfare with her baby in the carriage, going to cafes to keep warm because she couldn't afford the heat, writing her book, sending it to multiple people who denied publishing. Can you imagine? They said no. And one publishing house, I forgot the name of the publishing house, gave the manuscript, like I don't know, the first 5 chapters to their 8-year-old child, who after completing reading it went to their father or mother, whoever it was, and saying, where's the rest? And they printed 500 copies and they sold out. It became so popular that they had adult version covers for Harry Potter, the Harry Potter. My point is, she sat in these fucking cafes because there was heat there. To write her book would she didn't have a pot to piss in. But there was something driving her. And she finished. And what happens with the average human being is they always let the monkey mind come in going, oh, no one's going to fucking publish that shit. You know how many books are published? Do you know how many books have been published? You'll never get that published. She became a billionaire to the point where she donated half of her wealth, and I'm sure she's recouped it again. Like, she can't get rid of it. It's like sticking on her like value. Even if she gives away $500 million, it comes back to her. You know, the merchandising and all that. So my point to you is, what did she have that most people don't? She was fearless. She was irreverent. She wrote something that was passionately her raison d'être, her reason to be. And somehow, some way, her attitude opened the most insane fucking door. An 8-year-old said, where's the rest? You can't fucking make this shit up. But it was her fearless irreverence to the task at hand. I don't give a fuck. I don't want to be in my world of poverty and welfare. This world's really cool. Let me create this world, the Harry Potter world, of an orphan, an unwanted, a scapegoat child, which ripped the hearts of millions across the world. And so you have to understand what it takes to be successful. There will be things you will create, like I've created books, right? Absolutely not successful in the terms of paper, in the terms of, is it a bestseller? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But what it is a completion to the next book, And not even saying, oh, well, this next book will sell, it'll be, no, it's fucking, this book needs to be written as well. And this book needs to be written as well. With no thought of, well, hopefully I'll write it so I can make money. It has to be, I'll write it because it needs to be written. And what happens after that is what needs to happen for the greater good. And the irony is when it's very similar to any writer like Anne Rice. Her grief of her daughter dying at 6 made her write Lestat, creating the chronicle, the Vampire Chronicles, which, I remember when I was in my 20s going to work on the N Judah in San Francisco. Those of you who've ever lived in San Francisco know exactly what I'm talking about. The N Judah taking me all the way to another bus to go down to Pier 39. And I would see tons of people on the metro reading Anne Rice. It was a big thing in the 80s. And she was originally a San Francisco girl, if I remember correctly. But the point is, she didn't write it to become a millionaire. She wrote it to rewrap her grief into something that was creative. So grief, right? Lack of self-worth can be transmuted into something magical that benefits the greater good without even you being consciously aware of it, or maybe you are consciously aware of it. You see? And so that right there, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing well? Because it's keeping me up at night. Great, then do it. Because if it's keeping you up at night, it will keep others up at night as well, for the good reasons. Money, for some of us, will come much later. Money, for many of you, will come sooner. But to be honest, many of you who are the light bringers who are listening to me right now, either now or later as a pre-recording, right? You're going to hear it later. You're going to realize that the pain and the suffering and the lack and the survival anxiety that you've lived in was actually necessary for you to become the teachers you're about to become. How the fuck can you sit across from people who have been homeless or who have gone through a divorce and not knowing how they were going to survive without that second income or whatever? How are you going to do that if you've never lived that kind of life? Do you really think I want Paris Hilton to counsel me or Kardashian to counsel me on how to, overcome my root chakra fears of the impermanence of, abundance, or the impermanence of my life, or the impermanence of relationships? You really think I want her fucking advice, or advice of women like that, or Kris Jenner, or whatever the fuck he calls himself, or all these people that have never had to suffer? Nelson Mandela was in jail for 25 years. 25 years. He made friends with one of the guards. I don't know if you know this. And his outer world was jail. Jail food, jail, and probably other things he heard being done to his own countrymen and women. And yet, in his inner world, he was free, living in a free country. And when he became president, right, he did not go out in a vengeful killing spree like he could have. Absolutely not. He reached hands to people who had oppressed, suppressed, and tortured him and his people. Because while he was in jail, he was literally rocking into the new state of reality that he was co-creating. And those 25 years in jail taught a lot of people. It wasn't so much, I'm sure he learned a lot, but the people that watched him learned a lot. I'm sure they were absolutely changed forever. So suffering isn't what you need to do because you deserve it. Some of the things that we've suffered are the very reasons why we become better teachers, mentors, advisors, spiritual life coach, whatever. And if everything's been handed to you your entire life, what the fuck do you have to teach anyone? Someone always had a check. You always had money. You could buy whatever the fuck you wanted. How far are you going to go in the ability to help others? That's really the question. So when you look in money, right? When you look at setting up an altar to Lakshmi, for example, for money, when you look at setting an altar of love and using, for example, archetypes, or like I use Krishna or Radha, I also use Buddha and his consort, both. And when you do that, but your monkey mind decides that you'll never have love. You'll never be loved. You'll never find love. This is, again, if you actually believe that, how can money come and honor you with its presence? How can love come and honor you with its presence? If you actually have decided already that all men are shit or all women are shit, it's all shit. It's, that's just how it is. If you've decided that, then you have just brought in a reality with your own monkey mind. And you've decided that that is the only way your life will be led. When you use mantras to literally hack out of that looping of your monkey mind, you will little by little find magical moments that will blow your mind. And I mean magical moments, because guides, let me tell you something, your guides, my guides, they have a sense of humor. They're funny as hell. My son chants the Lakshmi mantra 45 minutes, between 30 and 45 minutes. That means that he's doing probably around 5 or 6 rounds on his mala, right? And recently he found, and I told you this before in a past life last year, he found like, what was it, $140? I think it was 130 or 140, beautifully wrapped behind our house. No one's been here. Okay. No one had been here. He found another, I think it was $60 recently behind our house. I didn't lose any money. In fact, I rarely have cash on me, to be honest. But he found it, and he doesn't carry cash either, really. He found it behind our house. Once again, that's bizarre. You could say it's just maybe it's magically appearing through portals. I don't know, really. Oh, that's crazy. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not crazy. We have ley lines, we have portals, So my point to you is the most important thing when you say, I'm not worthy, I don't feel worthy of abundance, ask yourself why. I know that my beautiful Nick, my son's father, had those feelings. And at the time, we did not know. I did not have the knowledge on how to have him excavate that world. That was 25 years ago. I didn't know how to have him excavate that world within himself that said, I'm not worthy. It's one of the regrets that I'm actually releasing in this incarnation. I have to release the regret because it's intense. Because now I know exactly how to heal him, how to help him heal himself. But it's too late. So my point to you is I'm trying to be as transparent with you as possible so that you can actually find a way out of your own I don't feel worthy looping, okay? Anyway, any other questions on money? Any other questions? So it all starts from within. I know it sounds like a t-shirt. Oh, the world outside is what you bring to it. But there are it's a machine. It's actually a machine. There's an off and on button. Okay, it's that simple. So when you go inside, when you reorganize your internal dialogue and your thought pattern and and even your visions, there are people that are having visions of bloody, harmful, violent images that just come across people's minds, and they don't know why, but it does come. And so a dual mantra to eradicate these downloads, because being an empath, if you are an empath, maybe you're picking up on what's going on in Palestine. Maybe what's going on in Syria, Congo. Did you ever think of that? You're picking up on literally what's happening 8,000 miles away from you. It's just downloading to you because you're an empath and you're seeing these images and like, where the fuck is this coming from? So there's nothing you can do. You can't go on a plane and save anyone. So what you need to do is transmute the energy out and then resettle yourself back into the inner world of abundance, of love, health, and wealth, so that you can create something magnificent for those who aren't the closest to you. I'm in a loop of needing to find a job, to making a job. Fear makes me look for a job instead of creating. Well, I mean, all you can do, at this point now, this fear isn't going to help you because it's going to make you loop. So all you can do is, like I said, you've got to just release. And meditation, chanting, writing, 369. I literally did a video on one of the few things I sell on my page, which was the 369 project. And trust me, you get distracted. I get distracted. I go through death scrolls. But, it is what it is. So try to listen to the beginning of this video. It'll help you. I don't think you were there from the very beginning. And I'll upload this as soon as possible. Yes, we're going to go on a walk. I have to go now. My dog wants me to go on a walk. Anyway, love you all. Sending you much love on your journey. Namaste.